Member will resume her seat. Question number 3, Poto Williams.
To the member in charge of Social Workers Registration Mandatory Registration Amendment Bill, why did she draft the Social Workers Registration Mandatory Registration Amendment Bill?
Carmel Sepuloni.
Thank you. Currently, anyone can call themselves a social worker without having any qualifications or being registered with the Social Workers Registration Board. At the 2013 census, over 18,000 people classified themselves as social workers. However, there are currently only 4,700 registered social workers. This bill will provide New Zealanders with the assurance that anyone working as a social worker in their schools and communities with their children and families has the relevant qualifications and experience and is subject to professional...
Answers must be brief.
Parliamentary.
Point of order.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, earlier today I raised a point of order with you about whether in fact the Prime Minister's answers were succinct as required. And not only did he give a very long answer, you then invited him to continue the answer after that point of order.
The member will resume his seat. These are questions to members. And the way I see them being used, I can see a discussion occurring at the standing orders before too much longer about whether they're necessary. If they're simply a means of raising publicity to a bill that's placed on a bill, a bill that's placed on an order paper, I can see that being questioned by members. I don't need assistance from the member. The question's been answered. I'll allow one short supplementary from Poto Williams and an equally short answer. Point of order. Can I just clarify? I've given a ruling on that matter. If it's a new, fresh point of order,
it's a point of clarification, Mr
Order.
Speaker.
I'm not interested in a point of clarification. I have ruled.
What point of order, Mr Speaker?
If it's a fresh point of order,
it's a fresh point of order, Mr Speaker.
I just want to. The member just resume his seat. I'm not interested in a point of clarification. If it's a fresh point of order, I'm happy to hear it. But if I deem that it is not a fresh point of order, I will be asking the member to leave the chamber.
Mr Speaker, does the ruling that questions cannot be used to promote bills apply to government bills as well?
Well, I can't see what that point of order is apart from seeking to clarify the answer I've just given. Order. Supplementary question, Poto Williams.
To the member, what concerns were raised?
If I get another interjection from Chris Hipkins, he'll be leaving the chamber for the balance of the day. Point of order.
Does your ruling in respect of members' questions not being able to ask about support for bills apply
also to... The member will resume his seat. The member will resume his seat. I clarified earlier that in my mind, when we're seeing a number of times for these questions to be asked, which are simply a means of promoting a member's bill, I think we are in danger of standing orders reconsidering the value of such questions. I am perfectly entitled to make that statement. That does not change the fact that these 4 questions are on the order paper. They can be asked, but they are to be asked in accordance with standing orders. Poto Williams. Order. 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 Member will resume his seat. I just want to give him the same warning that I'm giving other members in this House. I have ruled on this matter. If the member in any way attempts to relitigate my question or to seek further clarification when I have been absolutely clear, then I'll be equally asking the Honourable David Parker to leave the chamber.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Point of order.
Point of order, the Honourable David Parker.
Mr Speaker, I wasn't challenging your ruling. I accepted that ruling. I put a different question, and that was whether the same rule applied to government questions in respect of their bills. And that was a different point of order, sir, which you haven't addressed.
No, clearly the same rules would not apply. Poto Williams. Order. Poto Williams, supplementary question.
Thank you. To the member, what concerns were raised with her during the drafting of the Social Workers Registration Mandatory Registration Amendment Bill?
Order. I'm going to ask the member to repeat the question because I couldn't hear it.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the member, what concerns were raised with her during the drafting of the Social Workers Registration Mandatory Registration Amendment Bill?
Carmel Sepuloni, what concerns?
Speaker, I'll just outline 2. One of the concerns raised was that the instances of misconduct were significantly higher amongst unregistered social workers. Parliamentary Library research compiled on this issue showed that of the 17 cases of misconduct reported in the media over the past 10 years, 16 of those 17 cases involving social workers were unregistered. There was also a concern raised that the Ministry of Social Development and Ministry of Education do not collect information on whether or not the social workers delivering the Social Workers in Schools program operating in low decile schools are registered.
Order. The answer is too long. Question number 4, Poto Williams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the member in